Hello, hello, welcome. This is Christy Ruffino, and I want to just take a brief moment to thank you for listening. You may be a longtime fan or a brand new guest. Either way, I want to encourage you to like and subscribe our show and to share it with your friends. I really try to bring in some amazing guests with some pretty incredible stories who are all sharing to not only inspire you, but equip you to live a better life. Our stories can either hold us back or they can propel us forward. And I've had the fortune of working with so many women to share their story, to clarify their story, and use it to be able to build their brand stronger and more vibrant and more attractive to their ideal clients. So if you have a story and you have a business and you don't know how to merge the two, let's chat. I would love to invite you to be a future author in one of our Overcoming Mediocrity books. All you have to do is go to overcomingmediocrity.org and hit the apply button. That will give you a little form to fill out so I can get to know a little bit about you and your story. And then we'll have a call. We'll strategize. We'll talk about your story and make sure that this is a good fit for you as well as for our project. Again, head over to overcomingmediocrity.org and I will talk to you soon, hopefully. Until then, on with the show.
Welcome to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where today's top influencers and entrepreneurs on the rise share empowering stories and ninja tips to become the fuel that ignites a positive change in your life. Our guests don't simply coast through life. They don't let difficult situations stop them. They set big goals, keep their eyes on the prize, and they're joining us today to share insider secrets you can use right now to step into your power and live your purpose. Now, here's your host, Christy Ruffino.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast. I am Christy Ruffino, and I'm very excited for today's guest because we're going to be talking all things content. Jennifer.neal is with us today. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hi, Christy. So great to be here. Thanks.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a few questions, and we're going to talk about your story, why you're so passionate about this, and then you're going to share some ninja tips about content. But I want to let the audience know a little bit about who you are and your experience. So I am reading from your bio that you are a tech nerd marketing expert and that you are a woman who is passionate about helping driven business owners slash customer acquisition costs and eliminate their frustrations from non-effective content. Her main focus is to help them attract online traffic and claim untapped revenue with her content activation system. She has secrets that she's going to share with us, and she also is a Formula One racing fan. So you'll notice some themes in her business that relate to fast cars. Her love of geek is almost as much as her love of Formula One, but don't worry, she also speaks entrepreneurese. And she loves to translate Greek geek talk. And really, it's a thing. It really is. And you'll soon find out her favorite color is purple. All things, all purple, all the time. So welcome, Jen.
Awesome. Thank you. Always reminded how much I need to update that bio.
I know. I hate when people introduce me as well, but you know what? Hey, it's a grounding piece, right? It's people get to know who you are. You've been doing this for a long time, over 20 years. I didn't read that piece, but you have a lot of experience in this area. And, we don't want to learn from somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. So the bio is super important. That being said, we also want to hear about your story. You didn't just wake up one morning and say, oh, I want to teach people how to create content, or did you?
No, it's been a journey.
Yeah. So tell us about that journey.
All right. Well, I actually, I'm going to rewind and we'll do a quick take, but I actually started off pre-med because I'm like that big of just a total geek and nerd. So in high school and college and stuff, I was studying to become a doctor. And during that time, I was working, like I had won contests in graphic design, Adobe version 1.0, and in high school and junior high and stuff. So
oh yeah, with the big Macs, right? With the big Macs, with the big screen, the big monitors. Yes, I was with you, girl.
Yeah, it was insane. In fact, I think I still have. I need to dig up copies of that for my origin story here somewhere. But so fresh out of high school, I was already working in small business marketing, and I couldn't believe it. Like these companies just hired me like, to do all of their marketing and design. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up working in corporate for 10 years because partway through my college career, I was like, I don't really want a job where I'm on call 24 hours. So instead of being a doctor, I decided to go into marketing and ultimately ended up creating my own business where I am on call 24 hours, but that's just
Isn't that funny how that works? Well, you're not really on call 24 hours, but once in a while, I'm sure if you've got a client that's got something urgent, you'll help them out. But it's not urgent like brain surgery or anything. So
that's true. It's not as bad.
Yeah. Well, they may not agree with you, but Jen, wake up. I need you.
I know. It's a marketing emergency.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I worked in corporate for a little over 10 years. I actually haven't to count, but it was over 10 years. And at some point I realized, because I was going through this and date myself, going through this. And so when websites became a thing, I was like, oh, I'm going to learn how to code websites.
Dreamweaver and all that, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, me too. I was there.
Yeah. And then I really got into product photography and digital photography and stuff, and using that for marketing, into video when social marketing, like social media first came out, like MySpace.
Oh yeah.
Right. When all that stuff first came out, and then when search engines first came out, like back in Ask Jeeves before Google and all this, like there was, oh, how do we take advantage of this from a marketing aspect? And so I've been on it, learning it like from the ground up from the beginning. And at one point I finally realized, oh, I actually have a lot of like on the ground training. And at that point I was just running departments and I had many people working under me and things like that. So I'm like, I know how to do all this and I probably can help other people. So I ended up leaving and starting my own marketing agency. And at that time I was more design focused. And so I worked with a lot of different companies, especially local. I started really small and local. And I did a lot of graphic design that worked into marketing, that worked into how do we capture the ROI from this? That has long been companies, like their desire is like, I'm putting this money into it. And it's not just about branding, but like, what am I actually getting back? So trying to find ways to track that is kind of where this journey actually started. And I ended up building membership sites and funnels and producing launches and like all the super nerdy tech things for people as my agency for 10 years, actually. Yeah, about 11 years. And then at that point, I kind of woke up and I went, I'm tired of building other people's dreams, And I'm like, for years, I had done all of these things because I was very technical and very nerdy. And I was like, yeah, sure, I can learn that. We can figure it out. And I finally realized that just because you can doesn't mean you should.
That is so good. That's a quote. That's a quote we should make sure we put on this episode because that is so simple, but so powerful.
Mm-hmm. And it becomes so easy to say and it's so much harder to do.
Oh yeah. When you learn the secret to like making that work, please let me know.
Right. There's a lot of diligence for sure. So it definitely is in the art of saying no. And so I started to say no. And I said, I'm actually going to pivot away from doing all things digital marketing and say, so if I'm going to focus this niche down, how do I focus it? And it was really, really hard for me because I'm like, well, but I can do all these things, right? No, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so what I did is I went back and I looked over all the years of working in corporate and working with companies, those that were really successful and those that weren't. And I started to look for the patterns. And where the patterns came down to was really those that were consistently posting content, and it was good content. And then they were reusing that in a way that was like not taking, like they weren't just reproducing content over and over. They were finding ways to repurpose it. And so that's where I said, okay, there has to be something in this. And so I started down the path of just content repurposing. And I figured out the process, and it can be a giant cluster. But I started figuring out that path, and it totally worked. But the problem with just repurposing, is that it's a long game. If you're going to play the content repurposing game and organic traffic alone, you need to understand that like it's going to be a full 6 to 12 months before you're starting to see the returns off of that. And a lot of people do not want to put the time, money, and resources into just doing the organic game. So then I started looking at the other flip side of it is, and I'm one of these people too, Facebook ad agencies. What do we do as digital marketers? We're like, we have this new program. I'm going to put up a funnel, and then I'm going to go hire somebody to run ads to it and ignore the rest of my business. Right. And then I'm excited when I got like a 2% conversion off of all this. Right. I'm super excited, and it works. The numbers work, but I'm like, this is a giant waste of money. There has to be a way that the paid stuff can support the organic stuff. And that's the key that I found. And so that's how I landed where I'm at.
Oh, I love that. I love that. All right. So content repurposing. I know you've got like a great process. I know I was so close to taking your last class. I'm like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. But I didn't, which is good, because just because I can doesn't mean I should, and I need to stay out of the weeds. And so, yes, but for those of us listening, or everybody listening and myself, like well, you know what? Before we dive into these ninja tips, I want to thank you for sharing your story. I want to take a quick break, because I have a feeling that you're going to have so much rich stuff for us that I want to make sure we have plenty of time for that.
Absolutely.
So, hang tight. Anyone can network. Yes, anyone can meet people and collect business cards. However, not everyone knows how to network in a way that will provide them with a regular supply of new and repeat business. Treasured Tribes is more than just another networking book. This revolutionary book will show you how to adapt different strategies with your networking efforts that will get you better results than ever before. To grab your copy, visit www.treasuredtribes.com. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am so excited to be able to have a little more time to dive into these ninja tips. And don't follow us to the end, because I know Jennifer's got a great gift that she's going to share. But before then, we're going to talk about Google Juice and Facebook algorithm hacks and 6 steps to repurposing and all that. I don't even know, where should we begin, Jennifer? There's just so much good stuff. And I am geeky too. So this is really like, I can't wait to be able to glean from you.
All right. Awesome. Well, let's start with, I kind of already teed it up by saying like the key is really in repurposing the right content, but also supporting it with a little bit of paid traffic.
Okay.
So just so you can kind of understand that. And so really the best place to start is thinking about like, what content do I want to repurpose? And so often we'll be like, oh, this is my favorite episode. Oh, I loved this one. This is what my people need to hear. At any point in time, what we think is best is not necessarily best.
Right. Totally
So
get that.
it is so important. Like for you, Christy, I would say go back and look at all of your podcasts and see which ones have had the highest downloads. I know that you have show notes and everything published on your website. So go into your Google Analytics and look at what are the pages that are the most visited. And a lot of times, if it's a past webinar that you've done, like, don't just think about podcasts. It can be anything. It can be an article or a blog you already wrote. It can be an interview that you did on somebody else's podcast. It's amazing content that people have voted and said, yes, I like this, just by the sheer traffic and people coming through. That's where you want to start, not with what is your favorite.
Right. Right. Because so often we tend to give what we want to give, and we're not paying attention to what they want from us. Right. We're just like throwing stuff out there, seeing what sticks instead of paying attention and listening and watching.
Yep. Yeah. And your numbers will not lie. Like, even if you haven't done a whole lot, you will still see a trend. All of a sudden there'll be a couple of spikes. And so you have to pay attention to what those numbers are, because if you think about this, and this is kind of getting into the Facebook algorithm, but if you think about how do social channels determine if your content is good or not? So you picture people sitting there scrolling through Facebook or Instagram or whatever. And if they're just scroll, if you have taken something that you're like, oh, this is amazing, but nobody really resonated with it, and you spent all the time to repurpose all that content, now you just have the same content that people don't resonate with times like 50. So they're just going to keep scrolling past that. And as soon as, like, the more people that are just constantly scrolling past your feed, the social channels look at it like, oh, this is spam.
Right.
So you don't want to be thought of as spam. So you need to start with what people like first.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so important.
All right.
And then you want to think about the 6-step framework. And on that, I do it by the 4 C's, which I'm actually going to pull up a document here and grab that. So the very first one that you are going to want to start with is character. And why I say that is because that is your core content. That has to come from you. So you're going to go back and you're going to look at your core content. And sometimes it also helps to go like add a story to it or add some more personality to it, right? That has to start from you as the core, because that's the only part that you actually have to do, right?
Right. Yeah. Somebody can't create, like, they can't duplicate us, right? So we have to create that initial content.
Yep. And then you're going to move into the copy step. And in the copy step, what happens there is we're going to employ, this is the biggest tip. So let me rewind just a little bit. When I mentioned that us as digital marketers, we go and say, I'm going to launch this new program and run Facebook ads, right? And we have the 2%. So typically we're excited if we get like clicks for $1 or less. We're excited if we get leads, especially for digital programs, for anywhere from $20 to $100 per lead. If you look at bloggers, which I know seems like some sort of nasty 4-letter word, but bloggers are able to get traffic to their sites for literally pennies, less than pennies, because what they're doing is they're grabbing the Google juice. What's the Google juice? The Google juice is they go and do a little bit of keyword research and they're saying, okay, this is what I want to talk about. Now, what are my target audience? Like, what are they searching for out there for this topic? So the Google will actually tell you this. You're going to go and type in, pretend like you are your customer, and you're actually going to search for an answer to a pain you solve or something that you're providing. And Google will actually tell you like, oh, here's what people are searching for. So if people are already searching for it, wouldn't it be smart to try to optimize for that? Well, that's what bloggers are doing. So they're capturing all of this traffic that for literally pennies on the dollar, because a lot of it's free. It's not that you're paying for every person to come. So that's highly, highly, highly what we want to do. But you don't have to write a blog as a digital marketer because you have already created this core content. So all you do is a little bit of research and you say, I want to focus around these keywords. Here's anything that I may have missed in my core content that I'd also like to include. And you give all that to a writer. They're going to write you a blog that will incorporate what your content was, anything you were missing, additional resources. It's going to be a fully complete blog and you didn't have to create it. And you can do it for typically like around $60.
Oh, nice. That's great. And that's a great way for you to bring eyeballs on your stuff, right? And get them in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
And then you also then have them, this is where the content repurposing part starts. So you're going to repurpose all of your stuff into a SEO optimized blog. Then you're also going to have them pull out soundbite. Like some of the things that we've really seen that work really well are the sound bites. Like you just said, Christy, like, oh, that has to be a quote. So the little sound bites, snippets, and by all means, you don't have to do all of these things, but we like to create little hooks. We go through and we pull out statistics, or we have stats sort of research so we create like, did you know? We turn them into like infographic things.
Oh yeah.
We'll pull out top tips, like key takeaways, sort of the Cliff's Notes version, right? We'll have that turned into tip graphics. In fact, one of the things we do is we use the tip graphic, like we turn it into a tip and do that as a carousel post. So we have that as a carousel post on Instagram, but then we also turn the whole thing, all of those tips, into one big graphic that is an infographic we use on our blog, and we put it on Pinterest, right? So all this is coming from your initial core content.
Wow.
So I like to go through, and I have a whole process in my program, but where we go through and identify how many times you want to post on different channels and what that
because
means
that's
and how
important
often.
too. We can't just like throw something out there whenever we want. Like, okay, I have free time on Thursday morning. I'm going to put everything out at one
Right.
time. Like that doesn't work. We have to have things out in different channels at the time that matters.
Yep.
On that channel.
It totally does. Yeah. And so that's where looking at, pre-planning and see, I have some people that'll do this process and repurpose a month's worth of content from like one core episode. We do one episode a week. So we do repurposing, but we do a lot less. Because at first, I will tell you, I started my podcast with the intent of repurposing.
Right.
Which worked fantastic. But then I was like, oh, we're going to do these 3 quotes, and then we have this and we have this. And like, we weren't using it all because we were just creating too much.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a waste of time and money. You don't want to do that. So it's really important to look
and streamline it, right?
Here's the channels I want to be on. Here's what that needs to look like. Here's the formats and all that stuff that needs to be in. And so you kind of create a pattern, like a posting pattern that you're like, I know I'm going to have, I'm going to post this many times per week or whatever. And so the important part of creating a pattern as you're going through this, and kind of jumping around a little bit, so hopefully it's not too techy, but the important part is once you create a pattern for your repurposing, then it just is a machine that continues to run over and over and over.
Got it. And so you probably initially will have to do some split testing with the things that you're putting out there to make sure that you learn when is the best time on each channel. And split testing means doing like multiple posts at the same time or different, like with variances to see which one is actually most effective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you'll see that as well with your content, which is actually our last step, is making sure that you're paying attention to the numbers. Because
yeah, that's the part I always miss. I'm like, I just throw it out there and then move on. Right. But it's so important to look at the numbers, because otherwise you keep moving on and you're not being effective.
Yep, absolutely. And it has, by paying attention to your numbers, you end up creating even more effective content. Because like for us, we used to do these other multiple choice things and questions and polls and stuff. And then we started finding that our tips were actually sharing and resonating a whole lot better. We were getting a lot more response from it. So we really liked the tips. And then we also noticed that videos were doing really well. So then we decided to create our tips and videos together. So I went back, I had the tips written, and then I would go and record myself saying all of the tips. And so then we started publishing those as reels. And it made a huge difference. Like every time we release a reel now, we're like minimum 1,000 views. And it's, that's just because we watched our numbers. So all of that stuff.
So like back up. What is a reel on? Is a reel on Instagram?
Oh, sorry. Yes. A reel is on Instagram.
Okay.
But you can also repurpose that same reel, just reformat it a little and use it on TikTok, or you can use it on Facebook stories.
All right. Well, that opened up a new question, is because now should people be posting on all of these channels?
Okay. Great question. Fantastic question. So the answer is, it depends.
I don't know if that's the answer we want, because
I know.
Right, so what
really, you want to know where your people are and what platforms are going to work. Like that's the number one. And the number two is, where are you at now? Because if you're posting on like hardly anything, just on Facebook and nothing else, then like just focus on Facebook.
Right.
If your people are consistently on YouTube and Facebook, then you know that you want to work towards doing some YouTube work. Or honestly, LinkedIn, Medium, Quora, those are great places to repurpose things as well. Don't add all of your, don't try to be an omnipresent on all of the channels all at once.
That's what I was trying to get to, because I think so many people, either they're getting started or we know what we do in our business, but we don't know this whole social media marketing game. And so we think that we have to go out and be on every platform, and we throw everything out there, or we go on a scheduling tool and make sure everything gets disseminated to all these places. And that's overwhelming and ineffective.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. It's so much easier to start with one or two channels and really just
dial it in,
consistent.
Right? Yeah.
Because it is a lot about the consistency. Even if all you're doing is posting 2-3 times a week, that's fine. Get used to that. And when it becomes complete routine and you're like, okay, I feel like we're ready to add something else on, then add one more channel, like just one little bit at a time. And if you're 5 years down the road and you're like, yeah, no problem, this machine's running and I'm on all the channels, cool. But you will fail, guaranteed, if you try to do them all at once to start with.
Right. And then you do all of it, and then all of a sudden you freeze, right? Because you can't keep up with it, and it's not getting you the results you want. And so I love this, having a strategy, figuring out what channels work, figuring out what is the best time to do your activities, be consistent, and take one piece of content and repurpose it in all of these different ways.
Yep. And the biggest key, the reason also that we're creating the blog post, and don't let me scare you with a blog post. It can be a blog post, it can be an article, it can be a landing page. But what we want really is a page that has good, valuable information. So I'm just going to pull my soapbox out here for a sec, because back in the time, like ever since SEO has been a thing, ever, or search engine marketing has been a thing, the social platforms, their job and the way that they make money is to keep people on their platform.
Yep.
Like that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
If they're going to send people off of their platform, they want it to be to something that is good, valuable information that's not trying to sell people, which caveat is why Facebook ad agencies are so expensive, because they're taking traffic from a platform and sending it directly to a page that is meant to sell or opt somebody, like sell them on some way.
Right.
So they're running conversion ads. Facebook knows that you're trying to get money from these people. And so they charge you more for the conversion ads.
Okay.
But if so this is the Facebook hack, the Facebook algorithm hack. If you are sending people to something that has good, valuable information, and Facebook sees that like Google is sending a whole bunch of traffic there because it's SEO optimized, then the price to send somebody from a traffic ad from Facebook to something that's good, valuable information, the price is literally a fraction of the cost.
Really? I didn't
Absolutely.
know that.
It's so much cheaper. And then you have calls to action on your page where people can choose to opt in and stuff. But if you're providing that great, valuable information, that is the next best thing to keeping people on the platform.
All right.
So that's why we're creating this amazing content, because then on our posts, we're not sending people just to our website or straight to a sales page or whatever. We're like, hey, if you like this and you want to read more, go check this out. And you can give them great information. So,
well, that's good. I didn't realize that. And that's really good to know. And I've always, like, I'm not a big content creator. I used to, and I have blog posts, but they're all old. If you were to advise somebody like me to start with a consistent process, what would be the first step for me and all of our listeners out there to start on this content journey?
You are already doing this process because you're producing a podcast.
Yeah.
That's going out every week.
That's true.
And honestly, like that in and of itself is gold right there. So here's one thing that we do with, I'll just take podcasts, for example, is so when you have guests on, they may not always be your like directly related to what you're doing for your business.
Correct.
Right? And this wasn't something I was going to talk about, but I'll totally jump into it. One of the best tools is to use the bridge story. And so what I like to do there is, and you probably do this as well, when you're looking at, oh, this was a great aha, this was a great takeaway from the guest that I just had on the show. Like, I love that. It was a great fact. So dive into that and create a bridge story. And what that means is you're going to look at it and go, okay, what was a big key takeaway? What did I find really important? What resonated with me? And then you start to ask yourself why, and you peel back those layers. Why was that important for somebody to know? Or why, like, okay, that was important because it's going to help save money. Okay, well, why is saving money important? And you're going to keep pulling that back until you get to a place where you almost feel it in your gut. So you hit some sort of a core emotion or a core value. So if it was, okay, this is going to save money. Well, why is saving money important? Well, so that you can put the resources in your business towards creating that bigger impact. Okay. Then why is that important? Well, because we're all here to fulfill a purpose. And this is like this, we all have a calling, right? Okay. That's it. Like, I just got goosebumps just from saying that. So
yes.
I know it's about having a calling. So when's another time when you knew that you had a call, that you were called to do something, or you became aware of your calling, or whatever? So you tell your personal story about that and how it relates to your business. And then you're like, and that's exactly the same feeling that I had when I interviewed this guest. So you're bridging them across to content that's not necessarily yours.
Right. I think Lewis Howe is an expert at this. That's one of the people I can go back and look at. Every time he interviews somebody, he kind of starts with a story. I don't know if he does it anymore, but I know when I used to listen to him all the time, he starts with a story and how his guest relates to his journey. And I'm like, oh, wow, that is brilliant. And I didn't realize that this is why, right? This is why, because now he's using it to be able to position his business and his purpose and have it all be relative.
Yep.
Oh,
and then that means in your show notes, you can optimize your show notes for your own business. You can have call to action and stuff for, if you want to learn more about my business, and then here's my guest. And if you want to learn more about theirs, and it's not going to compete because they're not the same.
Right. Right. Wow. Okay. This was so good. Now I know you have a free gift that you want to share with our audience today.
Yes.
And the links will be in the show notes below, and it is the Ultimate Content Repurposing Guide.
Yep.
You want to share a little bit about what that is and why our audience needs that?
Absolutely. So the Ultimate Content Repurposing Guide actually gives you literally the steps that I am teaching in my certification program. It's giving you all of the entire path of here's how you save, here's how you hack the algorithm, here's how you grab the Google juice, here's how you're going to do your keyword research, here's the 6-step repurposing framework, which we didn't get all the way through here. So you want to make sure you go grab that, because doing repurposing in the right format, like the right steps, is going to save you a bunch of time and money, guaranteed.
Right.
So you want to make sure, like,
I don't want to figure it out. I want to learn from you. You've already figured this out.
Yeah, I tried and failed so many times before we really got it nailed.
Right. I don't want to fail. You failed for me. So thank you. Thank you for sharing your streamlined path for this whole process.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then it'll show you kind of how to get started with that process and how to continue repeating it. So you're basically cranking up your content cash machine.
Oh, I love that. Love that. All right, Jennifer. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being on the show today, spending time with us, sharing your wisdom. I had fun.
Absolutely. Me too. Thank you so much, Christy.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you. Make sure that you not only download Jennifer's free gift, but if there's anything you found to be helpful, informative, useful, please share it with your friends or your people in the business world. And always, we would love to have you subscribe to our show, review us, rate us. Anything that we can do to make our show better, we would love to hear from you. But until then, until our next show, keep learning, keep growing, keep getting out there and do bigger things in the world, because as Jennifer mentioned, that we all have a calling, we all have a purpose. And if we can step into that every day and live into that, we will be able to make a bigger impact. So cheers to all of you. And thanks again, Jennifer.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams once they've learned the art of mastering their story. Mastering our stories is the key to everything we want in life. Our stories can either hold us back or they can propel us to new heights. We can choose. You can choose. Choose to overcome mediocrity with us. Let's achieve greatness together. To learn more, visit www.overcomingmediocrity.org. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.